Hello, everyone. We once again welcome you to one more new episode of Noesis Dialogue. Today, I have a very interesting gentleman who is one of the most prominent faces of in hospitality industry, none other than the President CEO of InterGlobe Hotels, Mr. JB Singh. Hello, very good afternoon, JB. How are you doing this afternoon?
Very good. How are you, Nandi? Always good to be here with you.
Pleasure. It's entirely our pleasure to have you, such a prominent personality at our platform. JB, so how's the business shaping up for you? How's the Indian hospitality market in your opinion? You have presence across the country with beautiful ibis and some of the upscale products as well. So last 6 months and 1 year been very patchy for the industry. How's your portfolio performing?
Yeah, so I think Nandi, we went through the usual cycle, but I think what is notable is that every time the opportunity of revival comes, which means when markets sort of open up, lockdowns lift, propensity to travel sort of picks up, we find the occupancies starting to climb very, very fast. It happened last year when we opened in May, June. You know, by the winter we were GOP positive, right until March when the lockdowns came again. And then even now, Nandi, I mean, moment the lockdown sort of opened or people were allowed to sort of step out, we moved from 20 to, you know, in the 50s. This month we are at a 51. As we speak today, we are at 55 across the network. So it comes up fast. ADRs have also started to grow, but slowly. So all these signs are very, very heartening.
That's very encouraging to hear from you, that JB. But coming on the ADR side, I think ADR still need to catch up, and that's all statistics are showing. So to keep the operating cost in control and to make sure that the current ADR levels and occupancy level are sustainable enough at the operating level as well, what all you are doing to make sure the boat is sailing well?
Host of initiatives, and I guess we've had a lot of time on our hands to do that, Nandi. I think we were very well prepared right in the beginning of last year. We saw early signs in January. We took a lot of sort of interventions straight away. By the time we hit March, I think a lot of the interventions are well underway. Big initiatives around cost savings, big initiatives around manning. We didn't do a typical manning cut. We went through a whole restructuring program. We moved from 0.67 per room at 1,800 employees. We are down now over 3 phases down to 0.37, wow, which is about 1,100 employees at 0.37 per room. That has also brought in a lot of efficiency. So manning is one side. I mean, we've sort of brought our manning costs down by almost 30%. But what is more important is that we are today even better structured than we were before COVID, which means that as we keep reviving, we will have this arbitrage, which will help us accelerate back to getting, better sort of books as we sort of grow out. Other than that, we used a lot of time to build sort of networks back with all our vendors, suppliers, bankers. We, rewrote a lot of our contracts, a lot of our relationships, a lot of our AMCs, a lot of work there was done. We continued to do and keep investing in power saving initiatives and, around solar, around wind, around idle. We looked at all our power loads, for example, across all our buildings, and we sort of right-sized all the buildings and made sure we kept reducing OPEX costs and things like that. So yeah, a lot of work there. And of course, a lot of government initiatives that came along the way. We evaluated them. We spent a lot of time working with the government and sort of appealing towards bringing in policy changes, etc., on things that would not cost the government a lot of money, but would give a lot of sort of impetus to the industry. So whilst it's all been unfortunate, I do believe that we've utilized this time well. We are far better positioned today, and looking out for every market segment that comes our way, so we can grow the business.
So you mentioned 0.37 is the employee ratio right now to the rooms. Now, if I look towards once the markets go back, let's say next 12 months, 18 months, we are back to 2019 level of occupancies. Do you think this 0.37 is sustainable? Can we believe that this is going to be sustainable and it's going to be the new norm?
I think that's a very good question, Nandi. It is our intention to make it sustainable, which is why we've come to this level through a fair amount of restructuring, which means delayering, creating clusters, clustered GMs, clustered technical teams, including clustered kitchens, clustered chefs, etc., etc. We have, however, built in some sort of small elasticity, but not more than about 5%. It has been, and this number has been tested when the markets came back in December. We ran our hotels with a 0.37, 0.4 manning ratios. It worked well. We're pretty confident we'll get there. What we are also doing, Nandi, is we are looking at a lot of tech for the back of the house, around procurement, around how we manage our finance, and sort of things like that. And we're also evaluating new PMSs that could help us, work our buildings better. So I'm pretty confident that within the next 12 months or so, we would be deploying some new tech into our buildings that will sort of help us with more efficient processes, better and faster, more efficient audits, for example. We're doing a whole program with one of the big fives. We're seeing how can we automate all our audits? How can we bring everything up on the machine and we can look at it, it's transparent and creates benchmarking across our entire portfolio and brings greater efficiencies in how we buy, how we procure, how we operate, and start to standardize, all our back office expenses as well. So that also takes out a lot of, time spent by people just going to record, because we all know the hotel industry over the years has been so sort of off the cloud technology, pretty manual, things like that. So we're trying to sort of, see whatever we can do with that.
Interesting. So in 2019 level, the industry benchmark for the employee cost to the revenue was approximately, I think, 18 to 22%. That was the benchmark for most of the hotels we used to keep. What do you think after a couple of years, maybe in 2023, when hopefully we'll look towards the normalization, businesses back into the place, fully ADRs have picked up. What do you think is going to be the employee ratio if we actually follow 0.37 or 0.4 as the benchmark number? Employees to.
Good question. I have not done a math on it, but look at it another way. If revenues were to grow, we all know there's pent-up demand. That's the way we see the industry. We may take some time to get out of this sort of vortex and get to some sort of pre-COVID ARRs. But we do believe that there's a lot of pent-up demand and the industry will accelerate out of COVID, the moment this whole social issue is sorted. So that's one. So which means a question comes to our mind that where will those post-COVID ARRs be or revenue per room be? Will be far greater than when we entered COVID. I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption because demand will be such, the domestic market is growing, is sizable, all the international sort of travel has got internalized and that will open up a new sort of, market for us. And many other new demand drivers are going to start to come. So the ratios by default will change, even if people don't make too much changes. By default, those ratios will change. I think businesses that will make interventions now, putting in tech, right sizing, and doing all the other sort of interventions to rationalize manpower, their ratios could be dramatically different. That's one. I think a lot of outsourcing models will come in. We look at outsourced and insourced as one number, and which is, I think, the right thing to do. We'll get a lot of expertise from outsourced sort of models, whether it is around housekeeping, around restaurants, running restaurants. They will also impact manning, which will probably be the next phase of impact of manning that the industry will see. The moment there are credible suppliers in the industry who can work with big credible brands across the country. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, but I think it's all a great opportunity. And this is an area we'll see will continue to shrink. The third thing, I think, which is very important, and that's the way we see it actually, is it's just the size of buildings that we make. Because the size does many things. It sort of brings your capex down, if you're sort of clever on your sizing and public area spacing, but it also brings your manning down. And the way you design the buildings to operate, which is what we do, and that has helped us today, is that it allows you to just scientifically bring your manning down just the way the building is sized up and the traffic flows are planned. So I think lots of opportunities there.
So This is from last 12 months, if we look towards the leisure markets have done phenomenally well. In some of the micro markets, in fact, they have crossed their 2019 level ADRs as well, and have designed some of the properties as prices as high as 30-40%. Specific to leisure, I'm talking. I can't generalize, but yes, we have noticed that type of spike in the numbers because of pent-up demand and there's a demand-supply gap, especially the penetration of the branded assets in the leisure market is very low, just leaving Goa one as a market. Now, InterGlobe majority concentration is towards the business hotel, the existing supply, even the future supply which is coming. I will say 90% of that inventory is in the business locations. Are we going to see some change in the strategy of InterGlobe where you're going to take more exposure towards the leisure markets because of the current market scenarios? They are doing extremely well. Or are you going to still keep on to the initial strategies to keep growing in the hub and spoke model limited to the business locations?
Yeah, very good question. So the bounce back of leisure was actually anticipated when we entered the first phase of it. And it was quite apparent that the need to travel was growing. And moment there would be some relief, people would go first to within cities, do staycations, then do drivable distances, etc. And then, of course, as flights came on and a little more of that started. How sustainable is that as a segment as opposed to business travel, because that still has to sort of pick up, is something that only time will tell. Leisure will continue to grow. And in any market that's sort of going to grow fast, leisure will continue to grow. Where do we fit in? So it's not that we are not in leisure markets, Nandi. We are in Goa. We've had great success in Goa. We are currently building our second hotel with 140 rooms in Goa. In fact, our Ibis styles is sort of crafted for the leisure markets. But I think more than whether we go into cities or into sort of leisure destinations, I think for us at InterGlobe Hotels, it's more about the investment criteria. As long as the investment criteria is met, we do have both products which work very well in urban cities, can be built up in small, tight spaces, very, very efficient, not resource hungry. At the same time, we've got a great model. The new one coming in Wakatoa, is going to be beautiful. We've got designers out of Thailand, an American company, and we're doing some really, really cool stuff over there. We will continue to look at leisure markets, but I think our overlay and our really tick in the box on where we'll go will just depend on the investment criteria sort of stacking up. If leisure gets sustainable in some of these markets and continues to grow and meets all the seasons, if you really look at Goa, it meets all the seasons. Shoulders have become sort of kind of peaks, etc. If other markets sort of gravitate towards that, we will most certainly be open to looking at those markets as well.
Super. So coming on the pain point of the asset owners right now, which is the debt, especially the assets which are moderately or over leveraged, they're going through some difficult time. And with the limited support right now coming, it's more of the government support is to take more loans, which you have some relaxed time. But increasing the debt is not a permanent solution. It's a stopgap arrangement. For some time, you have some relief. What's your advice to the asset owner, because you own multiple hotels across the country and you have a debt exposure also to the company? So no one can answer, I think, better than you. So what's your advice to those individual hotel owners who are having a debt on their books?
So I think I would like to answer it in two ways: what owners can do now currently and what they could look at as they go forward. So I think currently, so the government's had a tough time, right? And we are not the only sector. There are hundreds of sectors across the country, and the government can't possibly have money to bail everyone out, which is why it has taken so much time for ECLGS schemes to come about. Last year, we got the moratoriums. There's been an announcement, like it was done in May for the health sector, for the on-tap liquidity. In June, there was an announcement for our industry as well of 15,000 crores. We still don't know the details. But nevertheless, we can't walk away from the fact that it's still debt, and it'll sort of sit in the books as debt. So one has to be careful. One. Two, use these facilities that the government has given, because if you look at the ECLGS program, doesn't look for collaterals. The interest rates are good. On tap will be at repo rate, 3-year payouts. moratoriums are pretty good, the carrying cost was pretty affordable, etc. It all also depends on how individual owners' books are leveraged. If the leverage is healthy, they can go ahead and sort of, take this at the same time, put in initiatives, bring your costs down, and ride it out. So that's one. I think if the leverage is high, well, it starts to get a bit risky then. And I guess every owner will have to really think if they can put in equity to either improve the leverage. Otherwise, they could end up with a lot of debt in their books, which is not great. We took a conscious decision to keep all our hotels open throughout the two sort of phases of COVID, because we felt that, and we of course continue to downsize, which kept our building alive, fresh. We carried renovation, which means we also took a lot of opportunistic business. So we continue a cash flow. And today, when I look back, we were better off keeping them open from a cash flow perspective than had we shut them down. So we have sort of better sort of a financial performance had we sort of shut them down. So that's the other advice. And we did it after doing a lot of, sort of arithmetic around. I think going forward, owners have to look at this business very responsibly, build responsibly. A lot of the assets across the country are oversized, and I might dare say even overcapitalized. Too much money has been spent. The ARRs, we have still remained a sub $100 sort of a thing. So even when we go out looking at brownfields, we do find a lot of the industry quite inefficient, and therefore we stay away from these deals because either there are compliance issues or there are sizing issues, or then they're just cost. So therefore, we need to build responsibly so that our operating costs are under check as you go forward. We right-size the asset, right-size it to the market, right-size it from public area to a room ratio, to a manning ratio, to an operating cost ratio, and make the business very, very efficient.
Just JB, the last question, which is very important for the asset owners and even for the hotel operating companies. Work from home culture is quite prevalent now, and it's working pretty well, especially for few sectors. Do you think even post-pandemic, it's going to be the new norm for the industry and we're going to see some demand contraction in the business travelers, especially the high concentrated markets like Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, Gurgaon, NCR, Mumbai?
Nandi, we are such an underpenetrated market, 140,000 classified rooms across a country of our size. With the GDP that's going to continue to grow and for us to become the top 5 sort of economies in the world. I think we are very far away from having optimal capacity in the country, very, very far away. Work from home, I think will also move to what I call remote servicing. For us today to pull capability, across the world to help us operate, I see that as an opportunity. So I think we'll see work from home gravitating towards more around remote servicing. So which means companies will today say, hey, you don't need to be living in our geography within 2 hours driving time or 1.5 hours. I don't care if you're out of Tokyo. If you can do this work for us, if it works, it works. I think we're going to go there. And I think that's going to bring in a lot of efficiency in the industry. I think that's when I look at the localized work from home, we may end up with hybrids, but the hybrids sort of environment is not just dependent on a sort of a COVID social story. It's also how our cities are getting planned and how the new demographics are changing, working life. So more than work from home, we'll probably end up with more flexible working environments. Does that mean that propensity to travel will go down? Not at all. And we will probably only see that go up. We will probably find companies working more efficiently through some of these and the need to meet. I mean, I would love to be sitting here live together and chatting, which is far more creative. We found that work from home is great for business continuity. I mean, whatever happened, thank God we were ready. Tech was there. All the Zooms and Microsoft Teams of the world. Thank God they were there, and we could continue to operate. Is that a substitute? No. I think this is just another aid. which will help us become more efficient. We could do meetings on the call. I think we've got used to that. A lot of the industry would stay away. Propensity to travel in a country like ours is just going to continue to grow enormously. And as the GDP will grow, as the need for the country to develop. I mean, this morning I was looking at how the future, railway station plans are being sort of, developed. I mean, it's just mind-boggling stuff that is actually going to come out of the gate over the next 5-10 years. That needs human interaction, that needs creativity, and that needs a lot of thinking on how a new India is going to keep sort of starting to grow. So this whole work from home, the tech stuff that we are doing, I think is just another aid, and that's our belief. But propensity to travel is just going to grow enormously.
Interesting. The last one, the real last one. How you see the next 12 months for the hospitality industry? Your prediction.
Oh, again, so first of all, I think the good news is, the whole vaccination drive is moving well. So kudos to the government, kudos to all of us in the corporate sector. We're all doing so much, getting employees and their families sort of safe and inoculated. In fact, that was the first question you asked me when we spoke. So that's a great thing. And vaccinated populations have shown different trends across the world. So that's heartening. So I think that's one. Second is, even though the second phase was very traumatic, we as a population have seemed to have come to some sort of terms with what it is and learn to live with it. And I think we are seeing more sort of responsible social conduct. I'm not saying optimal, but more than what we saw, let's say, a year ago. New travel policies, we are seeing a lot of, things opening up. In my mind, I think, of course, a lot depends on if there is third wave, what is that third wave? We don't know. But let's say it is what it is. We might see some sort of a bump again. But if you look at it, Nandi, from the last time we opened up in May, we saw the first signs of recovery in September. This time we saw first time recovery in 30 days. We opened and we hit 50%. So I think the market is becoming more and more resilient. It will sort of improve on performance even if there's another wave. And that's all of us as humans, we fight back so wonderfully and cope with it. I think we still have some time to go before the industry comes back to normal, but I think we are going to gradually keep growing. We might have a little of bumps. I think we all have to stay on course, keep ourselves efficient. Demand will keep coming. We need to make sure we're ready to service the demand. Small bumps here and there, I think we'll continue to grow.
JB, in our today's conversation, you have given tremendous positivity and optimism to all our viewers, and I'm sure people are going to take some interesting takeaway back to their homes. Thank you very much for interacting with us, and take good care of you. Looking forward to see you for a cup of coffee very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nandivardhan. Good to be here. Bye-bye.
Bye.